There we go.
Now we're on. Okay.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. I will now call the meeting into order. It is Monday, September 18th, 2023, and it is 6:02 p.m.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner. We will begin the meeting and we will have a roll call to ensure we have a quorum. Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Wolf,
Here.
Commissioner Cousins,
Here.
Commissioner Zappos,
Here.
Commissioner Bennett is absent, and Commissioner Decker.
Here.
We do have a quorum, so we may proceed. First order of business is public comment. Do we have anybody from the public who wants to make a comment this evening? No? Okay, thank you. Ms. Decker, this is the Residents Commissioner report. Do you have anything?
I do not at this time.
This meeting will probably be quicker than anticipated. We have a report, and I will be a few minutes, but this will be the Executive Director report. And although our developers and architects are here, I will do just a short update and Brian Lawler is one as well. But I will do a short update on development, meaning just what we're doing, just kind of some rough things about what we talk about during the week, because we meet weekly. So our title reports have been reviewed by Marco, have been received by Marco, and they're being reviewed. The ratification talks for RAD, the modification talks for RAD will begin once we have a master plan. So that's why it's important we get the MOU done so that we can move forward and then we can begin to determine where we are with the RAD process. There have been site suitability studies have been completed and they're being reviewed for both sites. And I've been advised that the site is suitable for building, but there is some still, investigation we have to do because we have the environmental review is in progress for both sites along with soil testing. The architects have presented mood boards and they will present more to gain further feedback until we develop a final footprint and also get board, resident, and feedback from myself so that we can have a good project. The city will also be formally engaged by us, meaning Marco and the Housing Authority, once we have a master plan or final footprint so that we can ensure that all the things that we're planning on doing will all be in concert and have agreement. And lastly, preliminary conversations have been had with Hudson Youth regarding their utilization of our commercial space here at the new property. And so they're actually very interested. They're actually interested in trying to see if they can program in here now as a satellite site in what they have. So we're just waiting for them to get back to us with a proposal and we'll. All right. The next thing is I need to read you a letter from HUD about our voucher funding offset. Dear Executive Director, it's not in the package, but I will give you a copy. It's Dear Executive Director, September 7th, 2023. The subject is Housing Choice Voucher Funding Offset. This letter provides information about the reduction in housing choice voucher funding your agency received in 2023 because of the unspent program funds in its HCV reserves. The reduction in funding means fewer families are being housed. The funding reduction or offset is part of the annual HCV funding process and allows HUD to redirect limited HCV funds to communities where they will be utilized. While HUD provided your agency sufficient HCV program funds to renew assistance for currently assisted families, the offset means that less funding is available to increase the number of families in your community that your agency serves. Moreover, because annual HCV program funding is largely driven by the Public Housing Authority's expenses in the prior year, repeated offsets can have a compounding impact, leading to gradual reduction over time in the number of families your HCV program can assist. Then it gives a link to a video for further explanation, and it explains, according to HUD data from 2017 to 2023, Hudson Housing Authority has been offset 5 times for a combined total of $203,680. Please see the table below for details, and as I said, I'll give you a copy. This combined amount represents 43 additional families that could have been assisted since 2017, calculated by using Hudson Housing Authority's average voucher cost for each year. Additionally, as renewal funding is based on what a PHA spends, these families will not be served year after year. Note, HUD did not implement a funding offset in 2020 for any PHAs. So what steps can you take to avoid the offset next year? HUD expects PHAs to make the HCV program decisions and adjustments to maximize the use of all your available HCV funds to best address local markets and affordable housing needs. This may involve taking steps like issuing more vouchers, adjusting payment standards, or other actions to improve the leasing success of voucher holders to help housing authorities manage their programs effectively. HUD has updated the program policies and provided tools and resources to make a better program decisions and engage more landlords in the housing choice voucher program. To see a list of resources, they provide a link. I strongly encourage your agency to make use of these resources to improve your program management and reduce the risk that it will receive future funding offsets. As Executive Director for Hudson Housing Authority, we appreciate your service and dedication to strengthening affordable housing in your community. To learn more about the Hudson Housing Authority Housing Choice Voucher Program in performing in relation to other housing authorities, we encourage you to visit HCP data dashboard at www.hud.gov/HCP. The local PIH Field Office Director, Leah Gallagher, is copied on this message. The PIH Field Office is available to meet with you to discuss any questions you may have or about steps Hudson Housing Authority may take to minimize funding offsets in the future. Yes, ma'am.
I think the board should send back a letter urging HUD to look at the income guidelines so that the budget matches the affordability in our area. And just reiterate to them that affordability is an issue. That's probably why people are not using their vouchers.
That's a good suggestion. Go ahead.
Yeah, I second that, definitely. And also I just wanted to find out what have been the kinds of like interactions with HUD I mean, I know, didn't we just pass something that
Payment
allowed us,
standards,
right, allowed us to change?
And we just changed that for the previous year. It's about to end. We'll have to vote on it again. In actuality, the payment standards have just been increased. And I'm actually waiting for guidance to determine if we can still do 120% of the new payment standards, which will give us even greater ability to assist families. But they literally wrote me back and said, we're waiting for guidance. But I did talk to Pat Gallagher today, who is our portfolio manager. And, you know, I indicated to him that I have some ideas of what we can do and how we can address it. And if they will allow us to. And so what he explained to me is, you know, find out, and just to give you an idea of that, if I can use PVV, some of our vouchers, and turn them into PVV. I don't want to say a specific site because I don't want to say bias, but let's just say there were apartments across the street and there was a landlord with a building of 50 people, and we could make 15 of those PVV units. That would increase our utilization, because even when people would leave, the voucher is attached to the unit, so we will be repeatedly funding affordable housing for someone.
I have
Yes.
two questions.
Yes.
I'm
Before we
sorry.
go further, no, I'm sorry. I just want, just for everybody here and for anybody listening, could you do the quick layperson description of your interpretation of that letter, just so everyone understands? Because there's a lot of intricacies, a lot of acronyms. Doesn't need to be a huge thing, but just to try to.
Thank you for that question. So basically, this is speaking about our Section 8 program. While they haven't taken money out of our actual budget here, we have HUD held reserves, and they take money from that if we don't utilize it. And so over a different period of 7 years, and I'll show you a chart, they've taken money from us on a yearly basis, small percentages. But this year, and this is the first time I've ever seen a letter, because they didn't do it in 2020, but this year was it was 18%. And so while it affects us long-term, it doesn't, like, it's not killing us right now, but we definitely need to do something because we don't want to be giving back money. It's money for us to use. And so the point is that we need to be able to, court landlords, try to get more interest and one of the reasons I wanted to read you this letter is because I have some ideas and some things that I want to present next month in the form of a resolution of how we can make some attempts to attract landlords and use some incentives, and that way we'll have a higher utilization and we won't lose money. And, again, I did talk to HUD today and they're on board with that. It's just that we have to make sure that if it's a new developer, for example, and we want to allot some, not MOPCO, but we want to allot some vouchers to, or PBB to them, we have to ensure, we have to check and see how they're funded and make sure that they're within the confines of the laws and we're not in violation of, like double assistance and things of that nature.
Wasn't there a linkage agreement we did?
And we can do stuff like that. Yeah.
Wasn't there a linkage agreement before Jeff came in that we did with Galvin on their 75 North 7th property where it was like, we agreed to give them a certain amount of vouchers to make sure to help us not lose funding. Like, I believe we did something like that with Galvin as well.
Okay,
And I think Brian worked on that. So like you can,
I'll check on it.
but there was steps that we took when this came up in the past to
Okay.
like alleviate. But
Understood. And we, we have been going through our list and we're gonna open up our waiting list and different things like that, but one of the realities is that once the vouchers are on the street, there's lots of times that potential residents come back and say they can't find a unit that's affordable,
Yeah.
the person doesn't take Section 8, or they don't bring in their paperwork in a timely fashion. And I've actually made already several extensions for people so that they can use the voucher. So we are being flexible as we can in that area.
Two questions. One is like, so within HHA, is it, are you the only person on staff who can kind of like, who works on this issue? Like who works on the,
I don't work on it all, not directly like that. So I
Okay.
don't do the waiting list. That's like, that's day-to-day clerical and administrative staff.
Right.
But we go through the list and we need to increase applications. So we need more people to apply. Our waiting list is open. So we need to advertise that. I plan on, again, like I said, we're going to talk about it in another meeting, but I plan on talking or trying to have some type of consortium with landlords. If we can get an agreement and if HUD is okay, there's some incentives that we want to propose to help people participate in the program. And whatever we can do to increase utilization.
and the second question is just, does HUD have any special, things they can do when a market is like Hudson's real estate market?
Well, one of the things they do is allow us to increase the payment standards, but it's not, and one of the things that the portfolio manager, Mr. Gallagher, said to me is that, this has been an issue that Hudson has struggled with literally for 10 years. So he actually has to do a monthly report on this, and he says he writes the same thing. So they're very aware that affordability is an issue. But I'm not gonna sit here and just look at it and do nothing. I want to try to figure out if there's something we could do to create it. And like I said, I wasn't even aware that you guys have already done something, but I want to do that and go beyond. So anything we can do to increase it. Okay. So that was, I'm sorry, a little bit of a Debbie Downer letter, but I had a nice one. Another one from HUD. I'm happy about this one. This was back in July. We didn't have a meeting and this was addressed to me. It says, "Dear Mr. Dotson, subject audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022 by Buell CPA PC. We have completed our review of the subject audit report. The audit included no findings, and as a result, we are closing the report. This office commends you and your staff for the good work in administering your federal housing program. Our processing of this audit does not preclude HUD from taking administrative actions should such subsequent information disclose as such actions are warranted. HUD reserves the right to return reports based on a subsequent review of the independent auditor's working papers. If such review identifies significant deficiencies, and should you have any questions concerning this correspondence, please contact me." Then that was from Kimberly Hogan, the financial analyst. That was in July. We haven't received any further correspondence, so I trust we're in good shape. And that is it for the executive director report.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to that. I listen, want to be as informative as possible. It is really getting serious and exciting around here. We want to move forward and do everything we can to work together to do the same. So at this time, we have our developer here, Monco, along with the architects, and I don't want to say that separately, but they are two separate organizations working together for us. They are here to talk to us about what plans they've come up with and everything else that they want to add. But additionally, I just want to note, and the residents can participate too, but to the commissioners, we're really looking for your feedback tonight on what you see. So feel free to ask questions and interject ideas.
Well, thank you, Mr. Dawson. Thank you, board, for having us today. So as Mr. Dawson mentioned, we're here with Alice Borland of Borland Architect and his associate Quincy, who we have all met before also, and then Dupeng as well, there's another associate there. So they're here because we have a wonderful proposal to share. This proposal is meant to be interactive, so we want to hear from you. Unit counts, density, building heights, all of the amenities that we have here. It incorporates, they did a beautiful job incorporating the comments that we had from the tenants meeting, everything from the amenities that you were looking for example, the wanting of townhouses, and what, the feedback we've gotten from the board initially, like the pedestrianization of like State Street and trying to make it into community with like safety lines. So hopefully this is very responsive to a lot of the wants. And then the purpose of today is to help shape the next iteration of this. So this is not the proposal that's landed. Maybe it is. Maybe you guys are gonna be like, this is outstanding universally. That's it. Great. But this is intended to be like an iteration of what the final product will be after we have all the input. So I will, without further ado.
Thank you. How should we show these boards?
So these boards, the board, I believe, has the whole packet, right?
Yes, but
Okay, so
to
you
the
guys are-
community.
Yeah, how about, if it's okay, maybe I'll stand over here.
And because of our electronic mechanism, we can see.
I think we'll hold the boards up and bring them around.
I'll probably grab one chair, so you have that.
It's on the board.
Maybe
If you want,
people
you
can
can.
come up.
Absolutely, but it is on the board.
We'll put a few chairs.
What are you doing here? Oh.
This time we'll bring easels.
Okay.
But we
That's
really.
okay.
we really didn't know that.
That's okay.
I'll wait to accommodate you next time.
We also have some copies for folks to have, but I think we want to promise to get them back because we don't want like
Yeah. all right.
non-final.
I think Mary's back there.
Maybe bring them out to people, yeah.
But please give it back, because these are not.
If you
final
don't
copies,
mind,
they're working
maybe I'll
copies.
speak to the.
That's fine.
community.
We got
Okay, but also talking, well, I'll.
Before you leave.
We're okay. Yeah, you
Okay.
focus on the tenants. They're the most
Quincy
important.
and I will be talking. So welcome and thank you for coming tonight. And we're presenting the very preliminary plans for the replacement of Bliss Tower and housing on in this area. And the idea basically is that instead of having a tower in a parking lot, what we're doing is creating housing that will create a park. And so the idea is that these are low-scale buildings, and we would close State Street and make it pedestrian, and then create a park
So
that's.
I'm so sorry.
Are you on
I'm
this
sure the
one?
board
Are
is
you on
following
this one?
along. So maybe I'll just.
No,
Yeah, that's one. You got the right one. We're good. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Just, if you give us a quick snapshot
So
before you
the
turn
idea
it,
is
it's
that this is
perfect.
a
Yeah.
park for the community in this part of Hudson that is actually a bit larger than the one further up on Warren Street, which is an acre, 1.2 acres. This would be 1.5 acres of park that is created by these towers that are L-shaped and blocks and in scale with the neighboring community. And this is a little kind of perspective drawing that shows the context of what we're proposing in relationship to the rest of the town. And also the scattered sites that will have townhouses here. Those are the D1, D2 here.
That's a good reaction.
That's the kind of response we
And all these are very nicely planned out apartments that will show you some of the plans. And it's phased so that the tower will come down and that we'll be doing the north side of State Street first. And then the south side, the A block second. And let's see.
Can you just turn one around for a second so the camera can see? 'Cause we
Oh,
pull
I'm
up some
sure.
people
Oh, I'm
a lot.
sorry.
So we can see. That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Oh, and
Thank you.
we're on the other side.
Yep.
Hey,
Thank
Christie,
you.
do you want to say something? Yeah.
So
We'll hold more things up. So long.
I guess in addition to what Alex is mentioning, we've planned this around the park, and the park has the amenities, that it becomes the playground, the basketball court,
There's a
other
big one.
activities for the children as well as for the community at large. We wanted to incorporate that into the center, so it becomes this place of activity, of community, where we come together, where you come together and make this community happen. Segue into the buildings themselves, the buildings are kind of double loaded. On the ground floor of these buildings, you'll find a generous entry lobby.
Yeah, this is
More so. The buildings all have a generous entry lobby, so we wanted to emphasize that as well as the community functions on the lower floors, when it comes to the laundry room, the gym, computer room, some commercial space, recreation centers such as these, with added upgrades to the amenities. And then from there, we go up to the apartment levels. And on each floor, we boast from some buildings from 12 units a floor to 20 units a floor. But those would then be a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Which is very emblematic of the building here itself in terms of its distribution of units. It's what we envision to do. As Alex had mentioned also, the buildings have different massings, different scales to relate to the scale of the neighborhood itself. And I think, not tooting our horn or tapping our shoulders, but I think we did a decent enough job to encompass the scale of the neighboring 5-story building that's just across the street. Taking into consideration some of the lower scale buildings, the 2-story, 3-story brownstone brick buildings, clapboard buildings. I think we kind of distribute those among the townhouses. So 15 townhouses is what we boast for this scheme. And then 300 units of residential spread across 3 buildings on the campus. And we envision this to be a community where we all can enjoy this and you all can enjoy this.
Oh, another thing is, we can, rather than have the center courtyard parking lots, we've put parking on the periphery and also created underground parking. That we take advantage of the slope down so that you can simply go into the parking below the building. So that way you enable this to be a park at a parking lot. And this park has a basketball court, a large playground, a fountain, even a smoking pavilion over here. And we look forward to your input in terms of the programmatic development of the park as well.
I just want to add too, just so everyone will know, is that this is also going to incorporate property that the city has offered us that we voted on a while ago, an option agreement to buy. So that's another reason we're able to expand and spread out. So it's a very, very good thing that we made that decision. That was, led by our chairperson. But it's coming to fruition, and that is fantastic. So I just want to make everybody aware. So we're not just going to be right here. We're going to be like down the street, across the street. It's exciting, to say the least.
And we're only using inside all recycled, healthy materials, no off-gassing, low carbon, and we'll have some energy generation on the roof. And buildings will be very energy efficient and keep costs down for heating and cooling. So it's meant to be an ideal community, the best place to live in Hudson.
Yeah.
You have any questions or comments?
Yes.
I just have one question.
I think you have to speak up too, because we have people online too.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
Yeah. Both of you, listen, both of you, please stop. Thank you. Right? My question, the townhouses, is that only for families or as a single person like myself?
We're not sure what the structure and that will be, but we'll.
I mean, because if it's more than 2 rooms, then I really need it. You understand what,
I
and
see
you
what you're
probably put rent, you know, I probably have to get into. And then another question, you said that there would also might be a 20-story?
No.
No, 20.
So
So what?
Apartments.
20 units per floor.
Yeah,
No, see, there's part that there are 3 to 7. No. These are low, this is all low.
You're giving us a good idea, though.
This is all low scale, humanly scaled, like, basically townhouse height, structure. Yeah.
Because I'm just gonna say this, I've been born and raised in New York City, and I'm tired of living on top of people. And I just wanna be able to come out of my place, and you would not always have to wait on the elevator, all that kind of stuff. I just wanna open up my door and come out like the way they do next door to us,
Right.
you know, or the people that live in the back of it.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Now your voice has been heard.
Yeah,
And I think the townhouses adds that amenity of living and quality of life that you're describing, as well as this courtyard community environment we're creating. So you come out from the apartments and you're into this oasis. And I think this is a good reaction to the problem at hand.
Yes.
Yeah, with the townhouse, does each townhouse envisioned for one family or is envisioned a different family on each floor?
I think we can have a mix. We haven't honed down what the details on the townhouse units are.
Okay, how many townhouses?
There are 15 spread around on the campus.
So 15 townhouses, but some of them can have one family, some can have.
They can
They can
vary.
have a mix of, the number of units has not been determined per townhouse. So that is really one of the reasons you're here, for your feedback for the development of that part of the program.
And there could even possibly be 1-bedroom apartments within the townhouses is a possibility, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm a lady, like, I stand up.
okay, girl.
Okay, they feel one, all woman too. Okay, right, okay, one thing, okay, you got a lot of weapons in this building here. You know, I don't, you know what, if I move there, I don't wanna have no knife or nothing. You know what I mean? I no gun around the area, but you got kids to think about.
Right.
You see another, this need to stop. You know, can you get this place going, hope y'all put the rules down, and let them know they can't have no knife in the house, they can't have no guns in the house, none of that. What these kids say. That's what I'm thinking about, the kids. Not thinking about no adults, I'm thinking about the kids.
So safety is important.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you for that.
That's your point. Thank you.
I think it says.
Any other questions or comments?
So can I prompt a question?
Yeah, I'm gonna come to questions.
So quiet.
Mr. Knight?
Hi, everybody. It's good to see you again.
Hi.
All the residents, it's great to see you guys coming out. First thing I want to say is congratulations to the staff and the board on getting a clean audit report. That is fantastic. And you guys should go to the staff and the board as well. So congratulations on that. So a couple of things. And questions for Alex that he can talk about a little bit. We talked about it a little bit, but the idea of having different heights on the building, okay, I think it really makes it more of a community. So it's not like a seven-story building or an eight-story, everything is the same height. What Alex has done is he's really created buildings, some are 3 stories, some are 5, some are 7. So you've got a nice mix, and that's, I think, really gonna add to the attractiveness of it. But we'd like to get the board's reaction to that. Does that make sense to you guys? One of the other things that Alex talked about, and we talk a little bit more about, is parking, okay? As you said, a lot of effort into making the parking viewable, okay? The exterior parking around the outside of the building, you can those spaces from the apartment. We heard that comment from one of the residents, and I'll be able to see it. Even the parking that's under the building, first floors of those, you'll be able to see into there. So there's a lot of, you spoke to your question about security.
Yeah.
Want to make the property as secure as possible, get as many eyes on the area as possible. But Alex, if you think about that, the number of parking spaces we have in relation to the units. Okay, because that's an issue. We want to make sure we have enough parking, but not too much parking. We can always add more parking, but if we add more parking, we have to take something away. We've got to be careful about that. I think this is a great mix, but we're going to need the board's input on that. If you think we have enough parking, we need a little less. It could use a little bit more. So we like your input on the heights of the building. We like your input on the parking. And I think that again, the unit mix in the buildings that are not townhouses are all going to be 1, 2s, and 3s. We didn't want to put in the other buildings 4 units and 5 bedroom units or 4 bedroom units. Rather, if you're going to have big units, you'd rather have them in the townhouses. But that does give us the opportunity, as you were saying, you might be able to have a townhouse with a 1 bedroom, on the 3rd floor or something like that. So as Quincy said, we haven't gotten to that detail, but that'll give us some ideas to take a look at. So we'd like to get some input from the board in terms of what you think about the height, what you think about the parking. Maybe Alex and Quincy, you talk about how many spaces we actually have. So we have about 200.
We have about 280 spots,
280
parking
Parking
spots.
spaces.
Why,
That's
That's
pretty
almost
good.
1 to 1.
why do we need so many? That's what I would
Yeah, that's
ask.
what I'm wondering too.
Like, because the overall,
It's up to you. I mean, there really is no parking requirement.
There is
in
no
the town.
Yeah.
So this is totally
I think they have.
a discussion.
Less parking.
No, the 15
That would-
townhouses own their own parking.
That would be fine. I mean, we're not.
I mean, obviously we wanna-
I would also
advocate for more 3-bedroom.
Then that's something that a board can discuss. You know what your parking situation is, now. How many people are using your parking lots, how many,
That's a lot of
That doesn't
spaces.
tell us.
Yeah, that is a
If
lot.
you need so many, maybe you can use less. And that'll help.
I think that's what they're
Yeah,
expressing.
because there's less parking. And I think when we did the initial analysis of the current parking situation, it was very full amount of parking. Given the fact there's also street parking.
I would just say it's something the city as a whole has been talking about a lot over the last couple of years is how many spaces are there in the city? How much do we need? And overall, there's, I think, a trend towards encouraging less single,
That's true.
driving. So pretty much.
And the discussion we had or haven't had with the building team, it seems like was the general direction that things are going.
So to put you in the spot, if we remove that second layer of cellar parking, so cellar parking coincidentally is like very expensive.
That's what I was
subsurface.
wondering. Yeah.
So we remove that whole second layer of subsurface parking, what would you have an eyeball of? How many spaces you remain?
I think we should eliminate roughly about 80 spots, 80 to 90 spots, somewhere there.
Okay, so we would still have about 200, assuming you guys are okay with the mix for at least this conversation. 200 spots for 300 units in that like ballpark.
Well, a little
Okay.
less.
Just so you can.
2 to 3 ratio, which is a lot more than we have right now.
Yes,
Okay,
that's correct.
great. That's a fantastic takeaway. It really is a.
But I definitely would back clear up with the more 3 bedrooms for sure.
Or
100%.
3 bedrooms.
Because with this proposed configuration, it's about 66 now, is that right?
Yeah,
In terms of in terms of three bedrooms.
No, that's right, currently, the current configuration is proposing about 66, right?
Yeah, they're
Roughly.
roughly.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, but some families wouldn't qualify for a 4 bedroom.
Right, because of
Because
HUD
they don't have,
guidelines.
for the HUD guidelines, so
Yeah.
like more 3 bedrooms is probably.
Yeah.
Oh,
More families.
but we actually went through that, and we were realizing actually more families may qualify for 4 bedroom than we had first.
Oh,
So we did, that was a question that I have for you, and then,
And
we
the
did
other-
have some flexibility.
The other people that I'm thinking about are like not the ones that live here currently, but that might have an appetite to live in the new construction.
mhm.
They're still like the waiting list for the terrace for 3 bedrooms is their longest list, so I think.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
got you, thank you so much for
Yeah.
that.
That's actually a great comment. We looked at your existing like household profiles too, and I mean, I'm gonna eyeball these numbers and they're not gonna be accurate, but it's something like 4 households right now would qualify under like the HUD guidelines, exactly what you said, of like the whole project for 4 bedrooms, right? So, and then at the 5 bedroom level, if you're using HUD's guidelines, I think it's only one family with over 7 people.
right,
So I know HHA's guidelines are a little actually more forgiving than HUD's, like you can put in more people per bedroom.
Mhm.
But you're exactly on point, where the demand for 3 bedrooms is gonna satisfy everyone with like numerous kids too, and like you're, you know, like shaping the size. It's a great comment.
But yeah, it's exactly what we need, so this is good, thank you.
Right, so just to recap that, are we going 1 to 3 or 1 to 4?
For the,
No 4 bedrooms.
No 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms. is what
Three
it said.
bedrooms.
I think the townhouse is having some 4 bedrooms available.
Yeah, it looks like some of the townhouses have 4,
Or
5, yeah.
3 bedroom units in the building.
Correct.
Yes.
Anything else?
Can you talk through like the turning State Street into a pedestrian walkway a little bit more? And what that would look like?
Well, that's in development now, but it would be closed to traffic except for emergency vehicles. So there would be bollards, spaced apart so that only fire engines or ambulances can come through. But otherwise, the idea would be like a pedestrian plaza that you could have a farmer's market, you could have pop-up
fairs.
kiosks, activities, festivals. So it's a pedestrian place that would be related to, but somewhat have a different feeling than the park around it.
mhm.
So that's all in development, and it's really one of the most exciting parts about this, because you would get to help develop the program for a park, of a substantial size. And what aspects would you want for the buildings themselves, and what parts would you consider more open to the public? Would be a question, I would say.
The ballot will be mechanically operated,
I guess, yeah, it's probably the best way.
because we gotta, do consider just in case there is an emergency. We do
Yeah.
want the emergency vehicles to have access, and God forbid there's a fire, but
They need
we
to
want
get-
them to be able to get in here, so.
So one of the other interesting things about the design, it creates this courtyard, but we have access from 3 streets. We were introducing a private public street, bringing Nord First into the site. And then turning onto State Street, which I think would help that. And in case there was an emergency, it brings an additional street in so that the fire department can get in.
Sounds good.
To go to the children of the community, as children are playing within the park, playing within the garden, playing in the environment. They can fall into the pedestrian street and it will be just fine because it's closed. And I think it bridges the community from, let's say, the site B aspect of this or the site A aspect of this. The kids could meet and the kids can play in this larger environment. So that was our thought process in developing this idea of this pedestrianized street.
Actually, on the way up here, we saw an apple tree filled with apples, and I thought maybe we could have a small orchard in honor of Hudson Valley apple tree, and maybe a vegetable garden too. So all these things that would be, make a more wonderful community.
Yeah,
I was thinking, when you were talking about the playground with the kids and everything in the community, we did get enough room to have like a little, well, not a little, but, I know some of the kids were skateboarding.
Okay, so skate park, good idea, great idea.
And when you came up with the idea of, the Dorothy and You know, with emergencies and things like that. That's right.
Well, you're not, well, actually, the whole site slopes down too, so you can.
But if it's after hours. No, I'm just saying, even here, when you have an emergency, let's say it's after hours, the security guard,
Right.
I don't want to, somebody has to come downstairs and let them in.
Right.
Except
Some
for
of the
fire,
doors.
I think. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think that was very.
You all have taken into account or at least been aware of all the utilities, water, sewer, storm water, everything that currently runs under there, and so there would still be
Oh, yeah, no,
obviously
that's why-
access for work to be able to happen to there and all that.
No,
kind of
that's why
stuff.
we're basically just transforming the surface, but
Right.
we're not taking anything out.
Right.
So it looks more radical than it really is.
No, I think I think that's great. It is a radical look in the actual experience of the area. It would be radical and it would be great. I really think it would be an amazing change to this whole.
I was just gonna ask, this doesn't show the like potential to have storefronts, so how many units would we lose if we did put in the storefronts? So,
We have some commercial.
Right, but we don't lose units.
No.
So on the
Okay.
ground, we're still 300 units.
okay,
On the ground floor, we have in smaller slab building, there's 1,000 square feet
Here.
of commercial.
Yeah,
here's, okay.
The other two.
All the purple,
Sorry, it's
essentially.
distributed between 2,600 and 3,000.
On the ground floor.
600 square feet
Okay.
in the large.
over here, this is commercial here
okay,
along Second Avenue. So this would be very desirable as commercial rentable space and some here. And then
Okay.
also some over.
Just
here.
1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
But the idea is on the ground floor for all the buildings, you'll have the residential amenity spaces with some apartments. Where it comes to gym or laundry room or community room or computer room, these amenities will be there. We will also have some residential units on the ground floor. So again, the eyes on the street, you know, we watch our neighborhoods. Which I think would then add another level of security to the grounds.
are we asking for them to like build to suit, like, are we taking suggestions of what would go in that space, or like, I know we talked about the Hudson daycare, possibly the youth center, are we gonna fill those spaces ahead of time, like, is that a part of our?
We're working on it. That's one of the things that we discussed. That's why, so we've already reached out for the Y. I think you reached out for the Boys and Girls Club, and the first person, or first unit so far that we've actually connected with has been the Hudson Youth Center. So, you know, we want to try to make it as, offer the opportunity, to whomever we can and see how that goes.
So
Okay.
what happened with the Y?
And the Y, but they're not.
I
They're
really
not,
would like to leave the Hudson Youth Center for like our last choice, honestly. I'm not really liking the whole work, honestly, that's happening right now. Honestly.
Yeah.
If we can go with the Y or the Boys and Girls Club, it's something like that. I love Hudson Daycare. They can definitely come over, but Hudson Youth Department, I'm not really too certain on that.
okay, we'll definitely take the consideration, but the Y so far, is really, and we've reached out to them twice, they're not, in the position they're saying to man, a structure, here, because they want, if we put it up and build it and we'll pay for operations, they'll do it. We can't afford to do that.
Mhm.
So that's part of the problem. They're struggling themselves in that area. And, you know, maybe something will change. We'll be able to go back to them, but we did open the door. We've spoken to them twice. I've actually talked to Mr. Brown. And you has written an email and he responded, in the same manner. So, but we'll continue to look and, you know, we'll reach out for the Boys and Girls Club. And if there are any other contacts that you may have, if you can funnel them to me. And you and I will reach out.
Just to directly respond to the question. I'm gonna talk in a minute about sort of next steps, okay? Eventually, we're gonna get to the point, we're gonna be submitting a funding application. If we're able to come to an agreement, okay, and this discussion as to sort of board policy, who you're interested in having, who you may not be interested in having, that'll direct us to work with Jeff and try to come to an agreement with an organization, we would love to have a letter of intent. Basically, when we submit our application to the state, say, we have a letter of intent that this 2,000 square foot area, we think this is gonna be there. So that's gonna be our goal as we're working forward. Just a couple of things, because it sounds like, we're getting, so I don't wanna put words in anybody's mouth, but it sounds like we're getting positive feedback to this idea generally, okay? We're gonna go back and make some revisions and maybe have another iteration of this, and you can be a little bit more specific, but our goal, I think, would be to come back to you in October and say, we made a couple of tweaks in this, but this is pretty much the preliminary plan we want to present to you, okay? And then get the board to basically adopt the preliminary plan. So what does that mean? That will then let us, Jeff was talking about this before. Housing Authority has to go back to HUD and renegotiate some elements of the RAD deal, but they want to get an idea of what would happen. Okay, so if you have a preliminary plan that's been adopted by the board, doesn't mean that's what you're going to do, because there's going to be a lot of other people getting their comments in, but that would be very helpful. The same thing with the state. Housing authorities all across the state are looking to get funds to renovate their developments. So we're competing with everybody else. The sooner we can get a preliminary plan into the state to give the state an idea of what we want to do, the sooner we can get a feedback and get in their list, okay? Sooner we get on the list, the sooner we can get funded for it. So what I think the process would be is for us to come back October. Hopefully we'll get a resolution adopting a preliminary plan, okay? And then what happens? Then we go back and engage with the state. Then we go back and engage with HUD. Then we talk about the investors who have to put up the money in the banks, okay? They're all gonna have comments. And I guarantee you, if you said this is exactly the plan we wanna go ahead with, at some point, we're gonna come back to you and say, you know what? We had to do a couple of things because the banks wanted this, or HUD suggested this, or the state suggested that. At that point, you have another bite of the apple. Now you look at it and say, well, when you guys were here, you told us 300 units and 15 townhouses. Now it becomes 12 townhouses and 250 units. Okay, do you still want that development? So even though you'll be adopting a preliminary plan, that plan is going to get adjusted as we bring in the other actors as we go forward. And we'll always have the ability to come back to you, show you what additional input we have, and just make sure that you want to proceed with the ultimately what will be the final plan. So our goal was to come back to you in October, get a preliminary plan adopted, okay? And then that'll allow us to start talking seriously with HUD and with the state. And that's going to be a process that'll take several months, okay? And that will also allow us to begin to put development numbers on this. Okay, how much is this going to cost? What are our funding sources going to be? Because we have to make those numbers work. So that, in our mind, that's what the plan is, to come back to you in October and then begin continued discussions as we move along.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I did want to just throw in a question about heating and cooling for the building and whether, I understand this is not the moment for the actual numbers to be crunching and stuff, but when it is, I personally would love to see like the difference between a geothermal heating cooling system and whatever you already have in mind, because we are phasing out fossil fuels. And so, yes. And so, it seems like a pretty important thing to,
We certainly would get numbers for that.
yeah.
I mean, it's definitely desirable, depending upon, the feasibility of it, both in terms of, the subsoil and
Yep,
also the
all of
cost.
that. Yeah,
We'll look into it.
Yeah.
thing.
Another comment, if it's possible, I'd like to see what some of this could look like if it was less than 7 stories. I think that's really close to 9 stories. So,
I'm glad you raised that, because I wanted to, that was one of my prompts, like for discussion here. So I love that you commented on So you feel like 7 is close to 9, which is like too high. Like, do you want that, like, is there a number in your head that you feel is lower? I know you guys are staggering the heights to be like.
Yeah,
There's a more,
I
you know,
think you
stated,
should take a
yeah.
look at it when we'll have like maybe a little physical model or something and see the proportions of everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not gonna feel anything like this. So it's the whole idea that it's lower and it's,
Can I ask why?
Why not 7?
Yeah.
I think, I'm wondering what it would look like to have it spread out more. And I'm wondering what the size of the units would be like if it was less floors, but it feels like a high rise though, at 7.
And let me just access to, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the higher structure would be on site B of the property, correct?
There,
And
across the
the
street?
reason and again, we're gonna talk about this and I just wanna tell you why I'm okay with that, just me, my personal opinion, and we'll come to whatever agreement we come to, but it's not stuck here in the middle.
Right.
So we have
Okay,
these
that's
9
right.
stories right here, so and it's, everybody can't conceptualize it, but it'll give a different perception if it's kind of over in the corner, and because there's gonna be staggered buildings, it's gonna be a much more attractive.
Yeah, 280 North Pearl just did that, Albany Housing, and honestly, it looks beautiful. It doesn't look like this. It doesn't look
Yeah, I think that's a
anything.
very good point. It's more of a wall rather than a tower.
Yeah, it's like,
You
it
have-
goes
you have this
along.
Focus on this thing.
Yeah,
And the other, this is like all part of, the space is actually more important than the buildings themselves. And there'll be a lot of landscaping, so it'll break it down, but we'll definitely look at it.
I'll hold my thought until I see it.
Okay.
you should look at 280 North Pearl though,
Okay.
in Albany.
Yeah.
You should go check it out.
Yes,
Okay, 2 questions. First of all, does this plan assume that First Street is going to be cut through to State Street?
That's our thought process currently.
Okay, and then, you said some buildings are going to be 5 stories, some buildings 7 stories. Is all of the building at north of State Street going to be 7 stories and all the buildings south of State Street
No,
5 stories?
no,
Or
divided.
in the buildings, it's like jagged 2 stories?
So the lowest will be 4 stories.
Oh,
So we start at 4, there's a 5, there's a 6, and there's a 7.
This drawing.
They're different heights.
Yeah.
Now, we take inspiration from the local environment, the context. Just across the street is a 5-story building. So we started to play with that as, in essence, the basis of working the heights in the building, as well as looking at the unit count. So there's a number of factors. But the 5-story that we kept in unison with the adjacent 5-story kind of works together nicely. We kind of kept the 7 stories away from wherever there were townhouse buildings so that they're still within scale. And as Jeffrey was saying, on site B, if you do see, we start to play with the landscape and bring the buildings up to 7 stories because it sits more against the adjacent landscape for the north, where there's not much buildings. There's just one building within the adjacent lot. So the heights, the shades and shadows of the environment that we're creating in a quarter, we took that very seriously as we masked the structures around the garden space.
Right, actually, we have the lower buildings so that the southern light will fill the courtyard. So we organized it so that the slightly taller building is to the north.
Thank you.
My question to the young lady. here.
Can you just talk a little bit louder?
My question to the young lady, you said that we're already, this building is, also to you?
I was speaking more generally,
Oh,
just,
okay.
you know,
Something we-
globally. Yeah, your car needs to run on. Okay.
That's why I was like, what? Oh, no, we gotta stop that. Okay, no question.
so do we have any more questions or comments?
Actually, I do have a question. So as far as the plumbing goes, and then the laundromat, is it safe to say that we can also like have a laundromat downstairs and like
the washer dryer hookups in the apartment? Or is it going to be just one laundromat?
Currently, we have laundry spaces on the first floor of each building. In the apartments, a different question, but we haven't as a group discussed that. But we will get back to you on that.
But let me just mention this, Ms. Decker, so we can have some discussion about it. I do have some concerns about it. It's an additional repair item for maintenance. And everybody doesn't necessarily use their laundry facilities properly. So if there is a washing machine that overflows on the upper floor, it's gonna cause damage to people underneath. So that's definitely a concern. So, you know, we'll look at it, but it's not the direction I'm leaning in, but we also, you know, hear what the board and the residents have to say.
So we also heard the feedback during the residents meeting, as you recall. And the feedback was exactly that the existing laundry rooms are small, they're not conducive to being used, like it's not that clean. So the new ones, we have like the Burlington Put National Laundry Room, that's pretty sizable in each of the buildings. So it's super easy for everybody, accessible by elevator. And they're, you know, we're gonna obviously make it as spacious as it needs to be. So it's gonna be a nicer build out that's like really meant to be like a laundromat, like not just like a room that you retrofit with like laundry hookups. So I
It's
think
not
that
gonna look
that's
anything
going
like what we
to,
have now. but-
yeah, I think that's gonna help, but like in terms of surface
obviously.
areas for folding, the whole thing.
But also
Fingers
you have to
crossed,
think
it's
about
for
like
you.
the affordability of having washing machines.
I mean, and I get that. I mean,
Still
at the
the
same
residents got to
time,
Purchase their own, and that is also.
We wouldn't provide that for.
but the reason why I'm asking is because not everybody wants to use the laundromat downstairs. If people have anxiety issues, stuff like that, that prefer to have their own utility, like own washer and dryer. That's where I was going with it.
Understood.
We may have some other thoughts and we'll discuss amongst ourselves, and I guess the next iteration, we can make a suggestion.
Thank you so much. Are there any other-
Sorry.
No, sure.
I have a few more, and I don't want to undermine all the work you've done, and everything like that, but just it's for my own peace of mind, just kind of double checking. Because we've always heard so much about the soil can't take these kind of structures, and this is the clay and the steep slopes. But you guys have obviously done your due diligence and you feel totally confident building 7-story structures across the street on that steep hill.
So we are still looking at geotechs,
Okay,
but again, our thought process here is to distribute load, distribute heights. As you can see, we don't stack 7 stories on one site or one location. And I think, given our due diligence, by the time we complete that within the next month or so, we'll have a much more formal idea by the time we get back here in October.
great. And then I always probably every few weeks or monthly speak with a member of this community who's a real pillar of the community who is watching this process, but I can never get him to come to these meetings. And I won't mention his name because I'm going to try to speak for him. But I think what he would say if he was here was, I think you guys are going to build a beautiful building and this is going to be great. And you guys are going to do all this thing and tear down the high rise, build something new. But all the people who live here aren't going to get to move in there. And this is not going to be for the people who live there. This is going to be for newcomers who are going to come to this town to live here. So what could you say to him to assure this resident that this is going to be for the residents who live in this building and the people who have lived in this community for their whole life?
That's a great question, and it's the simplest answer. The whole purpose of this project is to serve the people that are here now, okay? And then on top of it, to create some more housing. So in one sense, he's right, there are going to be some more people coming in. But one of the things that we're doing, and we're designing it, is so that we have the right mix of 1s, 2s, and 3s to make sure we service the people here, right? Because we know how many people needs 3s and 2s and 1s. So the idea is to build first on site B, get those units up, and then give the people here the opportunity to move over there into brand new units, okay? And then build on site A. So the whole idea is exactly designed to address the needs of the residents that are here now. We start with that, and then we want to add some units, okay, to provide additional housing for more people. But
Positive
definitely, the
relocation.
whole project is designed for the current residents and then.
Right,
add
and
on.
actually, this plan has twice as many units as is on the site now.
Mhm.
So we're pushing to make more units in order to make it
And
fill up everybody who's here, plus more people.
And the other thing is, we should be able to tell them that. But I talked about going back to the state and to HUD. We have to tell both the state and HUD, in order for them to finance it, what we're doing with the people here. So we have to give them a relocation plan. And that relocation plan is gonna say, we have units, we're gonna move people, we're gonna pay for the movement of people. When the new units are done, somebody's here, they need to move, we move them across. So there's gonna be a whole relocation plan that not only this board, but the state and HUD will hold us to. So we're gonna be locked in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, and so is the board generally, are you all generally okay with the 300 unit target? I know it's not a target that we kind of put out before, like we've been working kind of,
So two questions. One, would the shift in parking spaces create a possibility of more units or not?
no, because they were
Underground.
subsurface. It was a second level down that we were going.
Okay,
Right. Well, our aim is to do 300 units on the site.
and then also so then the question is just about number of affordable housing units amongst those 300 units, is that something that is in play right now in the conversation, or is it like that's all? It's
No.
I think that's just the kind of worry that a lot of people come with. These are gonna be new units and they're gonna be condos or something like that.
I'm sorry,
Just to clarify.
I misunderstood something in the,
It's designed as to look like market rate, but it's affordable.
oh, that's amazing.
That's the idea.
I just read
Okay.
something in here that, where was that? That seemed to say,
I was under the same impression you were, Rebecca.
well, there was just one thing that I saw somewhere that we were just looking at.
No, I don't think that said anything about non-affordable housing units when I looked at it, when I reread it.
No, this is not
Yeah, no.
80/20. right?
Yeah,
Right.
no,
What'd you say?
100%.
yeah.
I
That's amazing. That's what I
Right,
would,
because it had to be-
there was something, what was it?
I can pull it back up, but I don't think that, when I looked it over, it didn't. I
And,
think
and we're
it-
gonna get to that portion soon, we're
Yeah.
gonna address that, and,
I can pull it back up.
like I said, our attorney's on the line, and we can ask those questions, take a deep dive into those areas.
Okay,
One more
Great.
thought about around the 3 bedrooms, just, I think it would be smart if when we do decide how many 3 bedroom units we want to have, it's in comparison to like the other affordable housing projects that are taking place in the city, if we can just have an idea of how many affordable housing, or how many 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms will be online in 5 years
The
with this
configurations,
and
yes.
other,
Good point.
because that would make sense to figure out.
I think what Rebecca was kind of asking, what I was kind of trying to convey the message of the resident that I talk to a lot is that because gentrification has been so intense in Hudson, because there's been so much displacement, that people have a hard time believing that there could really be something that could benefit people living in affordable housing. And so,
Mhm.
and so I think,
it's really talking about some numbers that I saw in here.
I think this is what you were reading. We can talk about it when we go through the contract, but I don't think that we can talk about it when we get to the.
Yeah,
I'll add in a little bit of context too. So it is 100% affordable, and how the federal government defines affordable as 80% and below. So we'll have targets between 30%, which is the lowest. It's like, 4% below is the lowest target, to 80%. And what that means is you can, at every band, have households with a maximum income up to that band. So everyone here will have a household income that's below 80%. And then some people will have household incomes that are below 30%. The folks that have 30% incomes right now, the plan is to bring all of their existing vouchers over. So you guys won't actually see any impact. Of course, HUD is the major player in that discussion, but you hopefully won't see any sort of transition at all. It'll just be 1-for-1 with the new HUD modified contract. For everyone else, you'll either slot into an AMI band, or you can get different voucher source if HUD will give us one. So everyone will be accounted for in their right income bands, and it should work out to be 30% of your incomes. That's as a math. That's kind of like the idea between the different bands. And so the mix we haven't come up with yet, but we'll make sure that the mix is reflective of the spectrum of 30 and 80 while protecting the 30, because we know that those are like the most vulnerable populations. So right now, I think we have maybe 50% of our population at 30. So, like the ultimate composite will be something to reflect that.
And I would just add, the concerns that you're talking about are absolutely legitimate concerns. Concerns we've seen in every development that we've done, okay, because people are concerned. First concern is you're gonna throw us out, we're never gonna get back in. The second concern is when you let us back in, the rent's gonna be so high, we can't afford it, we're out, okay? That will not happen. Simple, that will not happen. We will have an agreement with the state before the state lets us do anything on the site, before they let us take down the building, before they let us start construction. That will all be laid out. Come first to you, say, these are the income bands we're targeting, okay, make sure it's okay with you guys. We submit it to the state agrees to it. We have a contractual agreement with the state, and they have the developer online for all guarantees, significant financial guarantees, believe me. So we have to adhere to that agreement and to those incomes. So the people are concerned, are right to be concerned, but believe me, they will be addressed and they will be taken care of.
And ultimately, the compliance with like the income maxes and everything, I hate to shift this burden back onto the housing agency, but you guys are responsible, right? You can't go above a certain income. I hate to say that, it's not Malco driving it here, so.
You guys are gonna be mad.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to clarify, my confusion arose from something that's in this document that now I see so it's not related to, like, I understand you guys are developing. That is cool. Thank you.
Okay.
We good?
Thank you all.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
appreciate it.
Do you need? Okay.
Can we hang on a few of them to keep in the office and not? You guys-
They gave one to Jeff. They gave one to Jeff.
Okay, one.
Yeah, I think that only one.
Thank you.
Welcome to come visit.
It'll make me come down this more often, yeah.
Yes. So thank you for that. We're gonna move forward. That was a very,
That was great.
very great conversation, very, robust conversation.
Thank
Jeff,
you.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Sorry.
No, thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to the residents as well as.
Thanks.
As well as.
Yeah. That's fine, waves are great.
Really appreciate your feedback. Because these are all the things that are going to help us make a productive project. So the next.
So by the way, this is for the board.
Okay, I'll get that to the. That's
That's what we're doing, imagine the train station.
Less than $25, nobody has to report it.
You're all good. Thank you. Thank you. So the next order of business is we have nominations and voting for the fiscal year 23 and 24 positions for the Board of Commissioners. Am I correcting that all positions are going to be the same? Is that the slate that we're going to remain? Which is Commissioner Smith as Board Chair, Commissioner Cousins as Vice Chair, Commissioner Wolf as Treasurer. Is that correct?
Correct.
So
I make a motion to accept the position,
nomination.
nominate all positions, say the same,
And vote.
and vote.
Seconded.
Second. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Hi.
No abstentions. No nays. The vote carries. Thank you. Well,
I don't want to do that, right? It is. I have to keep those to myself. That's all. You have thought? Yeah, you should have.
Yeah.
You don't want it on the board. No,
Right.
not right
oh,
now.
no. Thank you. I'm with her, I understand. Jeez.
Okay.
So we'll move on to resolution number 538, and that is CMAP. That is that the Hudson Housing Authority administers the Housing Choice Voucher Program under the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And whereas HUD measures the performance of public housing authorities, PHAs, to ensure that authorities operate the program as prescribed by the statutes and regulations. And whereas the CMAP performance indicator 14 specific areas and rates the PHAs in accordance with a designated formula as high performer, standard, or troubled. Whereas the report anticipates a rating of standard. Now therefore be resolved that the Board of Commissioners of HHA hereby authorize the Executive Director to certify the CMAP indicator score and adopt it on this date. Are there any questions?
I do have a question. So this is the standard thing that happens every year.
Section 8 Management Assessment Program.
And I guess I just wanted to, how does this relate to what you were just telling us about the fact that the program is not functioning that well?
Monetarily, meaning the money that they're taking is in our reserves. And if we're not spending it.
No, I get
they
it.
can't take it.
But am I right that the reason we're not spending it is that there are not enough vouchers being dispersed in the community?
Right, but there's other indicators that we are.
Okay. Okay. I guess I just want to note that I feel like that,
It's contradictory. Like,
Yeah.
why take our money if we're meeting
well,
standards?
that, but also like, just more on the substance level, like, I just feel like there needs to be, I don't know, more action on, trying to bridge that gap between the landlords and the
Sure.
vouchers. And I'm not sure, my question earlier was like, I'm not sure whose responsibility that is on
It's the
staff.
housing authorities.
On staff, though, who on staff
Well,
responsibility?
It's
is
not
that?
a singular, so honestly, this is gonna come down to strategic planning. So it's not a singular activity that has to take place to address this issue. And like I will present more in our next meeting, but we need to address the landlords. We need to get guidance on whether we can increase the payment standards and keep them at 120 with the new fair market rents. If we can do that, that's definitely gonna help. And then we need folks to apply on our waiting list and make sure that they are compliant, meaning they go through the waiting list and make sure they bring in their paperwork. And then hopefully find a unit. I think that's really the biggest problem.
Well, yeah,
Finding a unit
Definitely.
that will take Section 8 that they can rent. So it's just not it's not like somebody's not doing their part. We're going through the waiting. But their affordability is an issue and has been for 10 years.
totally. Yeah, I feel like I'm not making myself completely clear, but I also don't want to take up too much time with it because it's not really the time. But I'm hoping that we can have like a more substantial conversation about the whole program at not an earlier time, at a later time.
Sure. Not a problem.
I will make the motion.
Commissioner Smith makes
I
the
will
motion,
second it.
seconded by whom?
Me, Rebecca.
Roll call vote, Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Cousins.
Aye.
Commissioner Wu,
Aye.
Commissioner Zuckles,
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett is absent. And Commissioner Decker,
Aye.
the motion carries. Thank you. Resolution number 538 is, I'm sorry, 539.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. Two sheets here, 539, and this is for the MOU. Again, our attorney is on, Brian Lawler, if there are any questions. But the resolution has the MOU attached, but it reads that the Hudson Housing Authority issued a request of qualifications soliciting a development partner to redevelop Bliss Towers and other sites in the city of Hudson. And whereas the Board of Commissioners concurred with the evaluation committee's recommendation, whereas the Board of Commissioners authorized the Executive Director to issue an award notice and to enter negotiations of contracts necessary to engage Monco as a development partner with the Hudson Housing Authority. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of the Hudson Housing Authority hereby authorizes the Executive Director to execute and attach the attached memorandum of understanding with Mountco Constructions and Development Corporation. We have discussion? Yes.
I mean to jump anybody.
No.
I do have two questions.
All right.
About
Can you
the-
hear Brian? Yes, go ahead.
So the first question, so the reason I was confused earlier,
What page are you on?
I'm on page 2.
Okay.
So the first point, development of the project, development of the project shall be undertaken pursuant to the master redevelopment plan, which shall, subject to all applicable planning and zoning regulations, ensure that a minimum of 135 affordable housing units are developed across the project with a target of 200 or more affordable housing units along with agreed upon community space. That's not what they're talking about, right? They're talking about 300.
Well, this is the target.
Okay,
One of
So
the
we're
things I said
exceeding
when
the
I got
target.
here is that I wanted to try to double it. So
Okay.
I've been pushing to get as many units as we can, and we're, they're talking now 315, but this is not restricted.
that's awesome. That was why I was confused, just trying to figure out the difference. Like,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
if they're doing 300 units and our target was
I
this,
see.
then what are those other units?
This is the
But now
minimum.
I see.
This
It
is
was
the
just
minimum,
a strict
right.
confusion for me.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, though. Thank you.
All right, so page 3, middle of the page, the development and operating budget for each phase of development will each include a line item for HHA's owner's representative in the amount of approximately 75,000, the HHA rep. The HHA rep will be provided, blah, 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 and then it describes so who is the HHA rep?
I haven't hired one yet. We're not at that point, but
Okay.
it actually could be me, and it probably won't be. But it will probably hire like a consultant to review the numbers as well as the architecture to ensure that we are not getting robbed,
Gotcha.
essentially. So it's
Awesome.
protection
Okay.
for us.
And that's the size of a purchase that we will have to approve. Right?
Yes.
What will be
You
involved?
select. You select them, and just to jump in, hi, everybody. So an owner's rep is typically someone who works with either for or with an architectural or engineering company, who basically will be our eyes and ears during construction. Beyond the job, review, disbursement request, having, walk the site a couple of times a week, keep an eye on it, things that are outside of our normal expertise. And it's just a budget amount. In response to you, Nick, it would be something we would select and hire the person. They would pay us up to $75,000 to cover the cost.
Oh, they pay that, Mount Co pays that.
Right. They would pay it to us and then we hire somebody.
Oh, sweet, okay. Thank you.
They pay it, but we hire and we pick our person, because otherwise they would hire somebody who would just say it's all great.
There's no way I would allow
Yeah.
that. And I'm glad you wouldn't allow, but that would defeat the purpose.
Defeats the person.
There's a protection for us. I'm sorry, I didn't understand you clearly. Are there any other questions?
Brian, you like this contract?
I do. I think what I'm happy about is that Montco was more than willing to honor all of the promises they made during our interviews with them. And also respected the fact that we were pretty clear in our RFQ as to what we wanted, which was we wanted a partner, we wanted approval of the plans, we wanted approval of the budget, we want to be able, be on site during construction, and we also wanted to manage the project. They've come, they've stepped up on all those promises and all those obligations, and I think, we went back and forth with them for a good period of time, and it wasn't big conceptual issues, but more like defining review periods and how much time and what we look like and what we look at and how often. And I think you'd be happy with it. It's a good contract, and I think Montco is a good partner. I was really impressed with what they put on tonight, because their architect, they made a big deal about their architect when they did the interview with us, particularly when they came to the board, and that guy really is good. So he's creative, and I think that's something that we were looking for in Hudson.
One thing I couldn't find was, community engagement. Is
In
there
the
funds?
MOU,
Yeah, is that something in the purview or are there funds to find, organizations? Or folks that could help with that piece so that it's not on Monco? So I think that's gonna be an integral piece of development.
Well,
They
that's,
talked about that in their initial conversation with us, right?
right,
yeah, I mean, that is a requirement basically of all the funding partners as well. But that would be something that they be done jointly with us. I mean, we would kind of lead the way on that, of being the face of the project in the community and soliciting input and, but, Mounco footing the bill for whatever we needed to do, but being present and being responsive to them. But we would be in the lead on what we thought was appropriate and necessary community engagement.
Okay.
And my experience with them, and particularly in Kingston, is they are very good at it. You saw John. John is just, really good with tenant groups and listening and responding, and is not afraid to come out at night to Kingston, Hudson, or whatever, and make sure that what he's doing is, reflects what the community's asking them to do.
and to Brian's point, every time they come to the property, if there is space and opportunity, they always engage the residents. They did sponsor our tenant appreciation day, and we were there to help and actually served. When you comes for a meeting, particularly if she has a drawing, she'll come early, she stands outside and just talk to the residents and just trying to get a feel. So that along with me and, what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to ensure that we get, I'm sure we'll be fine.
And maybe if we wanted, it seems like they're the kind of partners that if we wanted to put together a more structured or formal kind of partnership or something like that, they don't seem like the people who would say no.
Right.
It'd be a matter of us trying to propose something.
Mhm. Agreed.
But that doesn't have to be in this contract. That can be something that we can work out independently.
Right, because that's what Brian just said, we can do it on our.
Yep.
Any other questions? Someone interested in making a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second that.
Commissioner Smith makes the motion, Commissioner Decker seconds it. We'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Cousins,
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf,
Aye.
Commissioner Zarko,
All right,
Commissioner Bennett is absent. Commissioner Decker,
Aye.
the motion carries. Thank you. And the next resolution is for the expansion of the chairperson's duties. You know what? I missed something on the agenda, I think we'll have to go back, I so apologize, but it won't take that long. But we'll leave it close. The next resolution is resolution number 540, that the Hudson Housing Authority Board of Commissioners authorizes the executive director to provide the chairperson with new access only for QuickBooks Online as a check and balance for financial oversight. Are there any questions?
My question is, when I first asked about this, you said something about I would possibly need to be provided a laptop. I never heard anything back, so.
Well, I don't think we have to. There's a multi-figure, I was concerned about is malware and, I don't know if you know, but there are some ransomware folks that are targeting not just other places, but they're actually targeting housing authorities. So that was what I was concerned about, but I've been advised on how I can use multi-user,
Two-step, yeah.
right, identification. And the IT person encouraged that so that it will be fine. Do you need that?
No, I know that when I asked, you said that you were going.
Well, it's concerned, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Any questions? May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Wolf,
No, second.
seconded by Commissioner Decker. Roll call vote, Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Cousins.
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf,
Aye.
Commissioner Zako, Commissioner Bennett is absent, Commissioner Decker,
Aye.
the motion carries. Thank you. The next order of business is resolution number 541. For Lieutenant Commissioner Election Policy and Procedures. Whereas the Hudson Housing Authority's Board of Commissioners has previously discussed and approved an election policy. Attached the policy for the election of resident commissioners and their participation in the Board of Commissioners, and where the Hudson Housing Authority wants to encourage diversity and incentivize residents commissioners' participation by implementing this policy. Whereas the Hudson Housing Authority wants to make the following amendments to the approved election policy to foster administratively efficient and administrative efficiency and diversity. Add to section 1, tenant commissioners, section D, there shall be only one elected tenant commissioner per household. Change section 3 to voting. Residents will come to the office to receive their ballots at least 10 days before the election. They will complete their ballot privately and place their ballot in the secure ballot box in the office. Additionally, any resident who is not able to come to the office during regular business hours should contact the office so arrangements can be made to vote prior to elections. Now therefore be resolved, the Board of Commissioners hereby formally adopts the amended policy as attached to this resolution dated 9/18/2003. Yes, sir.
What's the current policy on how residents receive their ballot? Can you remind me?
Yeah, can you turn your page? I highlighted it. Well, it's actually crossed off. Says HHA will deliver to each apartment official ballots for all eligible voters in that apartment. Voters may return their ticket ballots by mail, email, and delivery of the office on or before election day. And
I may not,
sure if you can have a question about that, but I think it's inefficient and not as protective as I.
but that seems like that's gonna that seems restrictive, and it seems, I understand that it's hard to deliver the ballots to everyone. But that just seems like gonna get into a situation where voting day comes and everybody's like, I want to vote. And they're like, oh, well, you should have come 10 days ago to get your ballot. And,
No. They can vote 10 days up until the election day as well.
but it's not,
So it's expansive. We actually were broadening the time that they can vote. They can start up to 10 days ahead of time. And that is also to help people who have work schedules. And even if it's outside of that, they can also contact the office and we'll make arrangements. So this is much more expansive than it was before. It's just that.
so they can
it does
come the
not-
day of
Yeah, it doesn't.
and get a ballot. They can come 10 days before
Yes,
to get their ballot.
yep, and they can vote.
But that's not how it reads.
Residents will come to the office to receive their ballots at least.
It
10
could say
days
could
before.
come, can come, or something that's, when it says
Can-
will, it make it sound like
It makes it
Well-
sound like what?
It
they
makes
have
it-
to come 10 days before or they miss out.
Yeah,
Well,
Maybe that's just my reading
well,
it wrong.
they can come 10 days before up until the election.
that's not what it says, though.
It says residents will come to the
I mean-
office to receive their ballot at least 10 days, meaning that's the start date. At
But that's
least
not
we're
what it-
starting before 10 days.
But it
Okay.
doesn't say. I think
Residents
it-
may come to the office to receive their ballots.
Starting 10 days before and continuing up till the election day.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess if the lawyers, I mean, Brian, you can understand the intent of what we're trying to say, right? Or maybe not.
Ryan,
think Brian's gone.
he's on mute. No, he's here.
Oh.
Brian?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I would say something like a tenant may obtain a ballot anytime up to 10 days before the election and vote anytime up till election day.
The tenant can get their ballot beginning 10 days before and continuing up until the election.
I think that's what he
That's what he
said.
just
That's
said.
what he said.
No, he said
That's what he
something
just
fine.
different.
That's fine. I'm with you.
Try saying it again, Brian, so we can, we should just put
But
something.
the intent is, that is the intent, what you're asking for, that is the intent. So.
Correct.
Let's reword it. I'm saying that's my intent as well.
Okay, good.
So let's.
So it's just a matter of getting the right wording.
Right.
Mhm.
Is everybody else, I've just been speaking the whole time, but does that make, are we all in agreement that that's the intent that we're looking for?
Yeah,
But that is definitely my intent as well, so it wasn't restrictive. So Brian, can you help us with this in terms of rewording it?
I think the commissioner had the right language, so I defer to her.
Go ahead, Commissioner Wolf.
So. Residents will come to the office to receive their ballots beginning 10 days before the election and continuing up until the election.
Up until the day of, up until and including the day of the election.
Right.
Beginning at least 10 days before the
Yeah,
election day, and then
you don't even have to say at least, because it's just beginning 10 days before
beginning
the
10 days
election day,
before.
and then continuing up until whenever.
That makes sense.
Up until including election day, right?
If that's how it is.
Yeah, just want to make that clear. So let's read it now. Residents, we want will or may,
I think it's will.
okay? Residents will come to the office to receive their ballots beginning 10 days before and then continue up to and including election day. They will complete their ballot privately and place their ballot in the secure ballot box in the office. Is that good?
That sounds better to me. Thank you for,
No worries.
Yeah.
Definitely was my intent. Any other questions?
we had given them, so was the ability to return ballots by mail, mail and email, was that a measure that just came with the recent,
It says it there, but we haven't done it though. That's, and like I said, it's gonna be efficient. This, for example, when I mail stuff to residents here, if it's certified, for example, we're not gonna do it certified. But if I mail something certified, it actually comes to the office first, because the post office is not gonna deliver it to them.
right?
And we have,
Mail does not seem efficient. Email seems like it could be very efficient.
but then it's a matter of who the emails go to, and I'm really not fond of that, to be honest with you. I feel like I have more control of this. And we got a very good turnout last year.
would people come into the office?
Yes,
What do you think is easier?
yes. I remember reporting the numbers.
I wish they would
I've
just
never
set up a
emailed.
voting table, like a
I would
voting
never
area.
email it. You would never
It
email
it
it?
is like a voting area.
Why do you come to the office, come to the glass, like I hate that glass, I hate it
When
all,
Technically, what
honestly,
is that?
but that's just me,
But
but
who is going to?
I think that there should be a voting table set up, like. A lot of people don't even like coming to that office. Like, honestly,
What do you have, Jeff? Don't you have like a locked box? And you leave that out?
Right.
In the lobby?
And now it isn't gonna be 10 days before. I will lock the box up in my office every day.
Mhm.
But like I said, it went well last year. We got a lot of turnout.
If you're saying 10 days up from 10 days before, then you obviously can't lock it in your office if you're counting weekend.
They can't vote on
Oh, I mean, I'm just saying.
No, right. But
You
they
said
can't.
10 days
Right,
before the election.
right. Business days.
And we should put that in.
Then we'll add business days as well.
Mhm.
That's a good point.
Because if you're saying 10 days,
Understood. 10 business days, because somebody needs to be there to attend to it. And whether you have an election table or whether they come to the office, still somebody's gonna have to sit there and attend to it. And it's really virtually this day. It's gonna be one of their activities. So, which is gonna take away from office duties of them sitting outside at a table. I watched the process last year. And again, I walk around the building, I encourage people to vote, I remind them, we put up signs, and we got good participation, we really did. You guys may not remember it, but I reported the numbers and you guys were like.
No,
"Oh,
no. I absolutely think that our kind of the reform that we did was really good and comprehensive, and I do remember that the last election was good. That's kind of why I just
Well, because I want to
I'm
make sure.
thinking
we're
about-
Doing it the way, it says.
did anyone vote via email
No,
in the last?
no.
Okay, so I guess that's a good sign that maybe we can continue with just the hand ballots to the office. I agree that mail seems inefficient. If nobody did email, then I'm okay with sticking with that.
Okay.
And I think what's covered, Jeff, and remind me, is, I mean, the only exception that we want to make is if someone physically or isn't present or is physically unable to come to the office, that they can request a ballot. Somehow that ballot will get to them, whether it's by email or somebody will bring it up to them. And
Yes,
they're able to vote.
we'll make a reasonable accommodation.
I mean, all the reforms that we did last year were, to adapt to the situation that we had, but also to encourage participation and make it easy for people to vote. And still have some control, make sure it was one resident, one vote, but, and it went well.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion? Any other questions? I'm sorry. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Motion.
Seconded.
Commissioner Zakos makes a motion, Commissioner Wolf seconds. A roll call vote, Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Cousins,
Aye.
Commissioner Wolf,
Aye.
Commissioner Zakos,
Aye.
Commissioner Bennett is absent, Commissioner Decker.
Aye.
The motion carried. Thank you. And so, and I'm sorry, I put this on the bottom, we have to go back to whole business for 1 second. I put this on the bottom by accident, I actually did stack my papers the wrong way, so I apologize for that. We won't be approving in minutes because we had a technical difficulty. The video actually was not on the site. For new transpose the meeting, hopefully we won't have that problem again. I'm actually still recording. So we should be fine. But the next order of business was to approve the accounts payable for July. We did not meet in July, so naturally we have to approve the payables as well. Are there any questions?
My only question is what's really good on here, because I thought Malco paid for it.
It did. So the way we did it, that's a great question. What we did is pay them first
Okay.
and all the things that we had to pay just to, make it more efficient. And then we sent them an itemized bill and they reimbursed us. So we received the check and deposited it.
That was for the barbecue, for the
Yes.
tenants.
Tenants
Appreciation.
appreciation.
We have a motion to approve the payables.
I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Wolf, is there a second?
Sure.
All those in favor of approving the minutes? Payables, I'm sorry.
Aye.
All opposed, have the same right? Any abstention? The motion carries. Mr. Zakos?
I do have a question.
Oh, we're almost at your favorite part.
No, I was hoping to get a quick update about the tough subject of evictions.
Well, I'm glad you're on the line, Brian. You
Yeah.
want to speak?
It's like-
Perfect time.
Yes, of
Got
course.
any time today?
So it is, I don't know how much you all know about the saga of going to city court for non-payment proceedings. Jeff had inquired of the firm of whether we would do it. We didn't think that it would be very economically efficient for us to do it. I mean, it's a lot of time and travel back and forth. Jeff also solicited, and Nick, I think you did the same thing, tried to solicit local attorneys who might be interested in taking on those cases. It's a thankless task. And really was unsuccessful in finding a local firm to do it. And I had suggested to Jeff that maybe he should just try to do them himself. That, it's a kind of basic type of proceeding. There's really no facts involved. It's, did you pay the rent or didn't you pay the rent? These are not evictions for cause. These are for non-payment. When he went to the courthouse, the papers are filed and he got a call back from the city clerk telling him that he couldn't file those papers on his own, that he needed an attorney, and it was that a housing authority can't on its own file an eviction proceeding. Jeff called me wanting to know if that were true. I had never heard anything like that before because I've seen other housing authorities file. I called the clerk myself and asked her, was there something wrong with the papers? And she was like, no, they have to be represented by a lawyer. I'm like, I never heard of that before. So she was pretty adamant and really.
The city court clerk?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. I said, could you cite me the rule or the requirement? No, I don't have time to do that. That's your job. And the judge agrees with me. So I said, okay. Then she called me back and cited a rule that referred to corporations having to be represented by counsel. I didn't speak to her. I went to our litigation folks who deal with these issues more often than I do, looked it up and said that, since we're a public corporation, that rule doesn't apply. So we were going to, then I got another call from the clerk saying there was a problem with our papers too. So that, so it was like, you're not only not allowed to come here, you don't know what you're doing either. So my associate was working on the papers and realized that the leases are in the name of the non-for-profit that we had to form for RAD. So we can't do Section 8 and own the property by virtue of the same entity. So we transferred the property to a not-for-profit that's owned by the housing authority. And now the leases are with the Housing Development Fund company that we formed. And that seems to fall into the rule of being a corporation and having to have an attorney. So I think what we're going to do, and Jeff, I guess we're waiting for direction for you. You have like 8 basically big cases that you want to go forward with, that our associate can package those all together to get some economy of scale, but it's essentially establish a bar, and particularly to serve notice on some of the tenants that are not paying, that the authority will take action to collect on those.
8
Right.
for
He
non-payment.
sent me an email back yesterday and I sent it back to him. Sent the email back to him telling him that to talk to move forward. And I'm sorry, your question was?
So there's 8 evictions pending for non-payment.
I'm sorry, I can't.
There's 8 evictions pending for
I was
non-payment.
filing, there should be.
And are there
there should
more
be-
for cause eviction?
Right now, it's only for some folks who are not paying. Are there for cause cases? Yes,
Are they coming down the pipeline?
not at the moment. I needed to deal with this issue. They will. I mean, we need to have people to be in compliance so that we don't want. We want people to be used to following what it is that they need to follow and be in compliance with the lease. Because we don't,
And this is still the process. This is still the process where we'll file, but hopefully counsel them to get them back on the footing that need to
Been
be.
counseling the whole time, like that is that is the basis for housing authorities everywhere. We would prefer not to do people.
But once they get to court, we're trying to settle with folks, right?
First, sure. Sure. I'd rather get the money.
Mhm.
I have a question, you all talk, first of all, I want to thank the state court judges for really following the law. For doing what they need to do, that's why we're elected, for the right thing by the people in the city. Are all the apartments in this building in compliance?
Compliance
With general housing standards, where people are living.
we have issues in the building, which is one of the reasons we want to move into a new development. And to be honest, some of them are should be for cost cases, and we're going to court for the damages that they caused.
I feel you, but I went to the housing building last week, door to door, and some of the apartments are atrocious.
Cleanliness,
But even more so.
holes, right, but that's what I'm saying, so a lot of that is resident cause.
There's also water coming all the way through. Yeah, I talk about asbestos and mold all the time. I talk about your elevators not being up to safety. Talk about the garbage chute. Then you talk about residents needing to be in total compliance. When you can't even give them a good quality of life, that's why you're building a building. You have to think about that when you're making these choices. Because I'm gonna go up there with them and say, well, hold on, what about this? They're not living in good conditions, whatever. I'm not saying people should pay, but there has to be some steps in place where y'all take some ownership for some of these conditions.
So to that point, if a resident is living in a condition that is in squalor, and that is the reason they're refusing their rent, it shouldn't be the only thing, but if that is the reason they're refusing their rent, they definitely need to come to the office to see me to bring that to my attention, and we will address the issue. But let me say this to you. I've met with several residents and sent all of the residents, and I send all the residents letters monthly who haven't paid rent. In those letters also indicate that they should come have discussions with me to work on those their arrears. And all residents don't come to talk to me for me to help them get assistance. But about all the ones that I've met with, not one has complained about the conditions that they lived in. Because I would have been in their apartment.
I don't think that they're gonna complain about the conditions they live in, honestly, because I'll tell you what. People invite me into their home and they love their home, and I'm like, oh my God. I don't think they know what they should be living in. I don't think that they know they're living in squalor, honestly. I think that in their minds, they think this is all I can get. Honestly, I really think, and I think it's a big percentage of that. I think people don't know the living conditions they're in, and they're just not woke to it. They're really not. That is the reason why I really came to this board, to change that for people, because they invite me into their homes as if I'm like, and it's everything to them, and they deserve so much more. They deserve to live in healthy, safe, adequate housing, which we are not providing, which we do need to provide. So I definitely agree with that. We can't expect them to do this when we're not doing this. This is why we're here now, to make a change and hope to give them a better future, and to hope they want more and want better and can keep a clean home. And there's tons of mental health conditions that we have in this building, in these properties. So I don't know, I mean, as plans to say, we're not saying they shouldn't be paying rent, but I really think that people seriously, they need the help, and they need the more help than we're giving at this point in time.
Let me make one more point. What you're trying to do, which is right, to get them in and talk, that's the first step, that's the decor anyway. Common ground, bring the parties into a room to negotiate a settlement. I've been to housing court multiple times, well, housing section of city court multiple times. So that's what they don't want you to do anyway, have a negotiation with the tenant in a room in that building and come up with something before they even move forward.
I'm not opposed to that, but it would be much easier if they would come downstairs to the office, because I've worked with people, try to offer them payment arrangements, and some people try to keep them, and some absolutely have not. So Not only am I very familiar with the process, I actually lived it myself, so I do understand that some people may not recognize, but we get work orders in the building every day. When people have issues, so they are reporting, and I don't believe that somebody's gonna sit there and if it's raining on their head, they're not gonna come down the stairs and complain. I don't believe that would happen, no matter what, what the perception may be. I don't think that little of my people, and these are my people, low income housing folks. That's why I do this business.
Do
just,
you believe they should be walking the hallway when it's pouring rain, they have to walk through buckets of water?
100% not. That's why we're trying to develop. There's certain things here that I can't. There's certain things here that we cannot touch. I really wouldn't want to make this public record, but there's certain things here that we cannot work on.
But you want to take it before. That's what I'm saying. I got that.
I'm not. It's not that I don't want to. It's not because I don't want. We haven't taken people to court for over a year.
I know some of us are there fighting.
Well, no, that was before I got here.
I know.
So what I'm saying
Some of us
is,
were there fighting.
but I'm saying okay.
I want to give
But
it.
we have to be able to operate. So
Some of us operate. Hey, I got somebody to pay $65,000 of back rent right here.
I got it. And what happened is that rent wasn't paid until June, right? And so that was only paid up until April. So people still continue to not pay rent and they were still in arrears. And we're actually putting them in a worse situation. As long as people have bills hanging over their head, they're gonna have worries. And this is one of them. So just the idea of whether am I gonna get evicted or not? Is he gonna take us to court or not? The fact that people have to have that over their head is not a good thing.
Well,
And the truth is, I beg your pardon?
there's nowhere else to go from there. And once you evict people from there, where they going?
But that's
not the objective. We asked about evictions, right? That's not the objective. Claire just asked that question. That's not the objective. We want folks to pay. But in order to get them to move, we have to go to the next step. Because for a year, we haven't done anything. And so we have to take some action so people can respond. Again, I send them letters.
When you say move, you mean get them to activate, not move out of the building.
Right, exactly.
Brian, I have a question. Just hearing your story of the interactions that your firm has had with the city court clerk, and I'm looking at the ledger and seeing the legal expenses and seeing all of those calls, specifically to Hudson City Court. And I totally understand that you have to charge for any of your members of your firm who are making calls. But yeah, there's I think 8 calls on here. It seems to me like it's a picture is being painted of an adversarial relationship right now between the housing authority and the city courts surrounding evictions. I'm wondering if it would be appropriate for members of the board or the board to go to the city courts to speak to either the clerk or the judges and talk to them about how we could come up with plans or come up with a program regarding evictions.
Well, I think that's a great idea because it did start out as an adversarial type of thing. She just basically, and Jeff can attest to this, basically threw him out and said, don't come back until you have a lawyer. And it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, there's people, there's ways to interpret rules, and all we're talking about is giving somebody a fair chance in the courtroom to have a dispute resolved. What I heard you say, and I think that is most important, and it's more, and this is not to bring it full circle. We started out this meeting talking about redeveloping and improving conditions for everybody on the site. And one of the main points is that we are basically relying on a lot of private investment, state money, federal money to help us to do that. And we want to be part of that solution, meaning we want to sign off on the plans, we want to sign off on the specs, we want to sign off on the budget, but most importantly, we want to continue to be essentially the landlord and be the managing agent of these projects. When people who are going to invest in Hudson, and there are a lot of people who want to invest in Hudson, that's not the issue. They will come in and take a look at our operations. And an issue statewide is arrears and evictions. And they will want to see, they won't want to see a whole list of people that you evicted, but they'll want to see a board and an executive director who's actively engaged in addressing the issue. It's a problem. I mean, people had problems paying the rent during the pandemic. What we did with the foundation who paid the back rent was amazing. But these are problems that came up afterwards, and we have to be able to have an answer to the question of when someone comes in and looks at our books and says, you got a lot of arrears, what are you doing about it? We should have an answer. We don't have to say we evicted 10 people. That's not the answer. The answer is, how do we communicate with tenants? And the bottom line is, how much have we collected? No one's going to come in here and loan us money to develop the project if we're not collecting rent, or at least have a plan to do it. So I think the idea of going, because it's really not, it's not sustainable, because, you know, the eviction rules are very weighted towards the tenants, and that's a good thing, but it makes the court proceeding very lengthy and time consuming, where it really does, it's not, you know, it's tough to get lawyers to do it because it's just not good work. So for the court to be saying, and, you know, Jeff can attest, and you Nick also, it's like local, we don't have anybody who's willing to do it in a way that makes financial sense for us. So there has to be some kind of middle ground. And I think, you know, a couple of the board members, you know, you're essentially mayoral appointees, would be a great thing to have a meeting.
Okay.
I think it's
I'll volunteer to reach out to the city courts to try to engage at that level.
You know, if it comes down to, well, we have to put our name on the paper, but you guys can show up, and, you know, we don't have to, you know, send somebody down there and sit in the courthouse and wait, you know, if Jeff or a staff member can be the one who goes to court, maybe that's an answer. But
Yeah, I would just be interested to see what, you know, it seems like they've got a stance, they've got a strong stance. So I wonder if we could just work with them proactively regarding this issue to see if there's, you know, if they have ideas of different programs that could help, if they have strategies, whatever it is, let's engage and talk with them and see. I don't know. I don't know what will come up, but I think it'd be worth pursuing and try to make sure that we can, you know, keep a good relationship with them and hear them out if they have ideas or strategies that we could all work together on.
you know, and to finish that point, there's only one judge who hears all of these cases. And
Correct.
Okay.
And it wasn't, you know, they actually took the papers, filed, just to give you even more clear picture. They took the papers and went to file them. The one person, you know, when I got that, said that there was an error, just like when Brian spoke to her, when she was like, no, you can't do this yourself. And I was asking why, and what's the law? Not adversarially. Can you give me the information so I can look it up? And she refused. And she initially did that with Brian as well.
Right.
So we didn't create that adversarial issue. In addition to the fact that I've been working with DSS, with St. Catherine's, and what's Jones is
Promise Neighborhoods.
Neighborhood to help some residents, and we have helped. But some, like I said, folks won't even come to the office to try to get that information so that they can follow those processes.
But can I say something? And going back to your point, no disrespect to nobody, but you just sat there and said you have the people with the back rent, which is good. But at the same time, how many of them people that they help with the back rent is still back on the back rent? That's the whole thing right there. Like, you have your agencies trying to help the people, you help them pay the back rent, and they're still not paying their rent up to this date after they helped. So like, where do you go from there then?
And let me just say, I understand how some may look at this, right? But let's just take the stance that I'm not going to be here forever. And I've said this about where every place I've been at. This is very important, at least for me, from my perspective, is to help the people learn how to do the right thing and to do the right thing, because while I'm not gonna be here forever, and you guys may not be here forever, it won't be the same people in charge. And then what will they have learned, or what did we teach them so that they can help themselves? Which is gonna leave a larger problem, which is extremely problematic to me. That it's like against my core. We have to help people learn how to do the right thing and take care of their business. That's extremely important. Because like I said, someone else may come in here and won't care at all. And then it's a whole different story. And then you truly have people out on the street. So it is a complex issue, but that is not the business. You can see, I can even share emails with you. Where we write congressmen, or congressmen and congresswomen, you know, our professional organizations, where we speak about the fact that we're not in the business of trying to put people out. That's not what we're doing this for. But we do need people to pay rent. We do need to be able to support them, as well as the fact that, and that's even on the other side where we're asking them to give us more money so that we can help address those issues. So we have to keep those in mind. It's not just a blinders type idea.
Thank you for that update, and I will, I'll check in with you, and then I'll reach out to the courts, and we can see if any other board members want to participate in that, and we can try to see if we can put together a plan
Can I
moving
just ask
forward.
a real quick question? Does HCHC still have people who go to court like regularly or no?
No, not really.
Okay.
They call us. But we have to talk to the judges.
Okay.
Everybody else good? Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you, everyone.
Aye.
Bye, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
for your
Brian.
time.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.